This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad and live today. When I lived up in Minnesota, our master bedroom was located downstairs in the basement. Now, also down in the basement, though not in our room, was the furnace. Now, it's very important for homes with this kind of configuration to have a carbon monoxide and dangerous gas alarm put into place so that you don't get sick or die because of poisonous gases that might be leaked by your furnace. Now, our alarm was plugged into the wall right next to my side of the bed, and there were a handful of times when that thing would just go off in the middle of the night. 80 decibels screaming right into my ear. I tell you what, I've never jumped out of bed quicker than when I had to try to turn that darn thing off. Now, each time it went off, it coincided with our dog jumping up onto our bed. Thus, we always assumed that she must have bumped the test button and set it off. But even knowing that she was the culprit, we still would lie awake the rest of the night, wondering if we indeed would actually wake up in the morning if we fell back asleep, because we weren't totally sure that it was her. We would be paranoid, immobilized, afraid of what possibly could happen. Even though we smelled no gas and we were pretty much knew the reason the alarm was actually going off, we let our fears get the best of us. There are many types of alarms out there in the world that are meant to alert us of a particular situation. There are those that are quite helpful, such as fire alarms and tornado sirens. There are those that seem to get ignored most of the time, like car alarms. And there are those that are absolutely dreaded. And by that I mean the very unpopular morning alarm clock. While all of these alarms are meant to grab our attention, many times they create panic for those that hear them, because we're thrust into an unfamiliar circumstance. Thoughts of what do I do now race through our heads as we quickly scramble to assess the situation and make a rational decision without letting our fears get the best of us. Today's gospel points us in the direction of alarms as Jesus speaks of the signs of the end of times. Jesus is quoted as saying, "When you hear of wars and rumor of wars, do not be alarmed. This must take place, but the end is still to come. For nation will rise up against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places. There will be famines. This is but the beginning of the birth pangs." These are the things that the disciples will witness and experience once Jesus departs from their presence. And they aren't exactly calming factors in one's life, but they are the reality. Things will not be easy. It's not going to be a cakewalk. The disciples will face trials throughout their ministry, and Jesus is telling them to simply be ready for the things that are to come. Stay calm. Don't be alarmed. This is the reality that they will have to live with until the day that the Lord returns. So accept that these things are taking place and don't flip out. Hollywood has always had a fascination with the end of time scenarios and creating movies depicting our imminent doom. These movies grab our attention with plots filled with panic and infused with even more chaos and mayhem. As moviegoers, we then come to expect the grand finale to be filled with special effects and action beyond belief as the storyline settles into a satisfactory ending. Now, all these movies have a common theme of people pulling together to not just survive, but to be victorious. Jesus is not just telling the disciples of the reality, but he's calling them to pull together like the heroes of a Hollywood blockbuster film. He knows what his future holds, for he has a date with the cross and the tomb. The disciples will soon be on their own, and they will be in the minority as they face persecution for being unpopular storytellers and heretics that are just up to no good. So how will the disciples proceed through the mess that awaits them? Jesus knows the answer. They can't be alarmed at what is on the horizon as they face their futures head on. They are the ones to tell and to retell and to retell again the message of God's love, and they will live out that message through a life of servanthood. These men must come together, work as a team, and bring new people into the fold, for this is a matter of survival. Now, the signs that Jesus speaks of doesn't necessarily mean that the end is imminent. I mean, obviously, we've gone 2,000 years past the time that Jesus first spoke these words. And that's great, because Jesus wasn't trying to predict the future. He wasn't going to pin down a day and a time that he would return and the world would be transformed. Gospel writer Matthew quotes Jesus as saying this: "The day and hour no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming." Jesus himself doesn't even have the timeline down, so he certainly isn't telling these disciples that the end is near. Rather, he's saying that this is what you are to expect when I am gone. And no, it's not going to be easy. You will have to readjust and prepare for a life without me. This means coming together as a team. So don't panic. Don't be alarmed. Instead, live every day in the midst of the turmoil and the darkness and the sorrow as if it is your last, as if the day of the Lord is at hand. When you do this, you will find success in the mission that you share together. These words for the disciples are in fact timeless and quite relevant for us Christians today as we encounter others in this world. On those days when you feel like throwing in the towel or waving that white flag and surrendering because it feels like the end is near, seek out others for comfort and reassurance. Come together as a community of Christ to share your difficulties and pains in order to receive encouragement and help from others. Come together as we unite under the banner of Jesus Christ. Come together as we bask in the promises found in Jesus' death and resurrection. For we cannot go about this alone. The job first thrust upon the shoulders of these early disciples, well, it now falls into our laps, as we are called to one common mission of service and love. Christ calls us to band together in unity so that we might not only find hope in his victory on the cross, but that his word might live on forever in the hearts of his people. His word is our alarm to move out of our stagnant routines and to push ahead as ambassadors of God's grace. Might be a wake-up call, but it should never strike fear and panic into our hearts, for we move forward in confidence when we choose to walk in the pathway of Jesus, united together as Christian believers. Amen. Remember as you go about your day that yesterday is gone. Tomorrow does not yet belong to you. So why not live today, knowing that you never walk alone? We'll see y'all next week. Later.